He wasn't having a bad day. That's important. Nothing had gone wrong. Nothing had exploded. Nothing felt heavy. It was just another ordinary moment in an ordinary room. A conversation. A few people. The kind of setting where nothing is supposed to matter. Someone made a comment. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It even came with a smile. Something like a joke. People laughed. He did too. Because that's what you do. You don't want to be the person who makes things awkward. You don't want to be the one who overreacts. You don't want to read too much into it. So he laughed. The moment passed. Or at least, it looked like it did. Hours later, he was alone. No noise. No audience. No one to perform for. And that sentence came back. Not all at once. Just a fragment at first. A tone. A look. The way it landed. He tried to brush it off. It wasn't that deep. They probably didn't mean anything by it. I'm just tired. But the mind doesn't replay things that don't matter. And this one kept looping. What bothered him wasn't the words. It was how natural they sounded. Like they had been said before. Not out loud, but in other ways. Through interruptions. Through being overlooked. Through the way his ideas were received or ignored. This comment didn't introduce a new fear. It touched an old one. He told himself what everyone tells themselves. Don't take it personally. That's the responsible thing to do. The mature thing. But the sentence stayed. Because deep down something felt off. Not angry. Not offended. Just exposed. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, he asked himself a question he hadn't planned on asking. Not why did they say that, but something far more uncomfortable. What if they meant it? And once that question enters your mind, you can't unhear it. At first, he tried to reason with it. People say things all the time. They don't always think. Context gets lost. Intent gets misunderstood. That's life. So why this? Why this one sentence? Why did it feel heavier than it deserved? He replayed it again. Not the words, the moment, the timing, the way no one interrupted, the way the room accepted it without resistance. That's when it clicked. It didn't hurt because it was harsh. It hurt because it fit. Somewhere along the way, he had learned something quietly. Not through failure, not through confrontation, through patterns. Being the one who adjusted, the one who waited, the one who didn't push back too hard. He had mistaken being agreeable for being respected. And over time, people had learned where he stood. Or more accurately, where he wouldn't stand. The comment didn't create doubt. It confirmed it. That's why it stayed. Because deep down, part of him had already been thinking the same thing, just never out loud. He realized something uncomfortable. The sentence didn't hurt because it came from them. It hurt because it echoed something inside him. A quiet belief he had never challenged. That maybe he wasn't taken seriously. That maybe he was easy to overlook. That maybe this was just his role. That realization didn't make him angry. It made him still. Because anger would have been easier. Anger gives you something to fight. This gave him something worse. A mirror. And mirrors don't lie. They just show you what you've been avoiding. That's when he understood something most people never say out loud. Some pain isn't an attack. It's information. He could ignore it. Convince himself he was overthinking. Return to normal. Or, he could ask what this feeling was trying to tell him. Because the truth was becoming hard to avoid. If a sentence hurts this much, it's probably not about the sentence. And once you realize that, you're left with a decision most people never make. There's a phrase people repeat when they don't know what else to say. Don't take it personally. It sounds wise, mature, safe. He had said it to himself more times than he could count. Whenever something fell off, whenever a boundary was crossed softly enough to pretend it wasn't there. Don't take it personally. But now that advice felt different. Not comforting, dismissive. He started noticing a pattern. Every time he followed that rule, every time he chose to be the bigger person, nothing improved. The same behavior repeated. The same tone returned. The same limits were tested again. Not because people were cruel, but because they were comfortable. That's when a thought surfaced. Quiet. Almost dangerous. What if some things are personal? Not everything. Not every comment. But the ones that land in the same place. The ones that follow the same shape. The ones that never happen by accident. Those weren't misunderstandings. They were information. He realized something most people never admit. When you never take anything personally, you teach people that nothing about you is personal. Your time, your effort, your presence, all negotiable. And slowly, without meaning to, he had trained the world around him. He had shown them what he would tolerate, what he would absorb, what he would explain away. The phrase, "don't take it personally," hadn't protected him. It had silenced him. This wasn't about ego. It wasn't about being sensitive. It was about reality. Some comments are tests. Some jokes are boundaries in disguise. Some smiles are permission checks. And then it became clear. The people who respected him the least were the ones he never corrected. That realization didn't make him loud. It made him precise. Because suddenly the problem wasn't them. It was the rule he had been living by. Don't take it personally. What if that rule was only useful for people who never wanted to change? He sat with that thought longer than he wanted to. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. If some things are personal, then ignoring them isn't strength. It's avoidance. And if they meant it, then pretending it didn't matter was no longer an option. He didn't confront anyone. That's important. There was no speech, no message, no moment where he stood up for himself in the way people expect. Because something had shifted internally. When you assume someone didn't mean it, you keep negotiating. You explain. You soften. You give them exits. But when you assume they did, you stop asking for clarification. He stopped filling silences. Stopped justifying his tone. Stopped shrinking sentences so they would land gently. Not out of anger. Out of accuracy. Something subtle happened. He began to listen differently. Not to respond, but to observe. Who interrupted? Who dismissed? Who leaned in only when it was convenient? Patterns became impossible to ignore once he stopped excusing them. Assuming they meant it didn't make him colder. It made him calmer. Because clarity removes confusion. He didn't raise his voice. He reduced access. Fewer explanations. Cleaner boundaries. More space. And space has a way of revealing intent. Some people noticed immediately. Their tone changed. Their jokes softened. Their certainty wavered. Others didn't notice at all. And that told him everything he needed to know. The most surprising part? No one asked why he'd changed. They just felt it. Because confidence doesn't announce itself. It reorganizes the room. He realized something quietly powerful. Taking it personal wasn't about reacting. It was about responding differently. Not to prove a point, but to protect one. Still, this wasn't strength yet. It was discipline. And discipline always invites resistance. Because the moment you stop playing your old role, the world tests whether you're serious. No one noticed the moment he decided. There was no deadline, no dramatic turning point, no single conversation that forced his hand. Just a private moment, the kind that happens when no one is watching. He realized something simple. If he kept responding the same way, he would keep being treated the same way. Not out of cruelty, out of consistency. So he made a decision, not to prove himself, not to demand respect, but to stop negotiating his value. That decision didn't change his personality. It changed his standards. What he tolerated, what he engaged with, what he walked away from without explanation. He didn't correct everyone. He corrected himself. Stopped volunteering extra context. Stopped rushing to be understood. Stopped making himself smaller to keep the peace. At first, nothing happened. And that was unsettling. No reaction. No pushback. No validation. Just silence. That silence tempted him. It made him wonder if he was imagining things. If maybe he was being dramatic. If maybe it would be easier to go back. Because when you change quietly, you don't get immediate feedback. You only get distance. But distance is revealing. He began to see who only valued him when he overextended. Who became uncomfortable when he didn't explain himself. Who needed him to stay predictable. That's when it hit him. Some people don't miss you. They miss the access they had to you. And once you see that, going back feels impossible. Still, doubt lingered. Because growth doesn't feel powerful at first. It feels lonely. And just when he started to wonder if this change was a mistake, the resistance began. The resistance didn't arrive loudly. It never does. It came disguised as familiarity. A joke that leaned a little too far. A comment that assumed the old version was still available. A tone that expected him to fold. This was the test. Not spoken, but understood. People don't react when you change at first. They probe. They check if it's temporary. If you're just having a phase. If you'll go back to being easy. He felt the pull. The urge to smooth it over. To laugh like before. To restore the balance everyone was comfortable with. Because that version of him had made things simple. But something had shifted. Not externally. Internally. He didn't correct them. He didn't explain. He just didn't comply. The moment passed. awkward, unresolved, and that discomfort lingered in the room longer than the comment itself. This is the part most people misunderstand. Resistance doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you've disrupted a pattern. Old dynamics don't dissolve quietly. They challenge you. Because consistency threatens comfort. There were moments he almost gave in. Not because he doubted himself, but because he missed the ease, the predictability, the illusion of harmony. But harmony without respect is fragile. It only lasts as long as you keep performing. He started to notice something subtle. The people who pushed back the hardest were the ones who benefited most from him staying the same. And that realization landed heavily, because it reframed everything. This wasn't about conflict. It was about control. And that's when he realized, change always asks for payment. Change didn't reward him immediately. It charged him. Conversations became shorter. Invitations less frequent. Certain people stopped reaching out altogether. Not with hostility, with distance. At first, he wondered if he had miscalculated. If maybe this was too much. If maybe taking it personal had cost him more than it gave. Because loss doesn't always look like loss. Sometimes it looks like silence. He missed the familiarity, the way things used to flow, the ease of being needed, even if it came at a cost. But beneath that discomfort, something else was happening. He was breathing differently, sleeping better, second-guessing himself less. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't performing. He was present. He noticed how much energy he used to spend managing reactions, softening truths, anticipating responses, avoiding friction at all costs. That energy returned to him. Quietly. Still, the loneliness was real. Because growth doesn't replace people immediately. It creates a gap. And in that gap, doubt has room to speak. It asks questions. Was this necessary? Was it worth it? Couldn't you have handled this better? But there was one thing he couldn't ignore. Even on the loneliest days, he respected himself more. And self-respect changes how loss feels. It hurts, but it doesn't hollow you out. He began to understand something fundamental. Taking it personal wasn't about protecting his ego. It was about protecting his integrity. And then something unexpected happened. The same people who once dismissed him started to respond differently. It didn't happen all at once. There was no apology, no acknowledgement, just a shift. Conversations slowed down when he spoke. Interruptions became less frequent. The same words, delivered the same way, suddenly carried weight. At first, he thought he was imagining it. Because when you've been overlooked for a long time, respect feels unfamiliar. People started choosing their words more carefully around him. Not because he demanded it, because he no longer absorbed everything. The irony wasn't lost on him. Nothing about his skills had changed. Nothing about his intelligence. Nothing about his capability. Only his boundaries. And that told him something quietly powerful. Respect doesn't arrive when you explain yourself better. It arrives when you stop explaining yourself at all. Some people adjusted. They met him where he was now. Those connections deepened. They felt cleaner, more honest. Others didn't. They kept testing, waiting for the old version to return. He didn't resent them. He simply didn't move toward them anymore. That distance wasn't punishment. It was alignment. For the first time, he understood something clearly. Being seen was never the goal. Not disappearing was. And in that realization, the external validation lost its power. Because even if it vanished again, he wouldn't. But the real transformation wasn't how they treated him. It was how he responded to himself. For a long time, he had misunderstood the phrase. Take it personal. It sounded reactive, emotional, like something people say right before they do something they regret. But that wasn't what it meant. Not really. Taking it personal wasn't about holding grudges. It wasn't about replaying insults. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about responsibility. The moment he stopped pretending certain things didn't affect him, he stopped outsourcing his self-respect. He realized something quietly profound. Pain is information, and ignoring it doesn't make you strong. It makes you uninformed. That comment from the beginning, it didn't wound him. It revealed something. A pattern, a tolerance, a boundary he had never drawn. Taking it personal meant listening to that signal. Not to punish others, but to correct himself. It meant asking harder questions. Why did this land? What have I been allowing? What needs to change, even if no one else changes with me? And once he answered those questions honestly, the rest followed naturally. He didn't become louder. He became clearer. Clarity replaced resentment. Boundaries replaced explanations. and dignity replaced the need to be understood by everyone. That's when he knew. The moment didn't break him. It calibrated him. And if you're listening to this, you already know which moment in your life this reminds you of. If you're still here, that matters. Because stories like this don't hold attention unless they touch something real. Maybe it wasn't a comment. Maybe it was a look, a pattern, a moment you brushed off because it felt easier to stay quiet than to feel it fully. We're taught to move on quickly, to be unbothered, to act like nothing gets to us. But some things are meant to get to you. Not to weaken you, but to wake you up. Taking it personal doesn't mean living in reaction. It means living in alignment. It means deciding that what you feel is worth listening to, even when no one else acknowledges it. You don't need to confront everyone. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need closure from people who benefited from your silence. Sometimes the strongest response is a private one, a decision you make when no one is watching. If something hurt, ask why. If a pattern keeps repeating, ask what you've been tolerating. If a boundary feels overdue, draw it quietly, because the moment you stop disappearing, the world adjusts, or it falls away. Either way, you remain. And that's the point. If this story stayed with you, don't rush past that feeling. You don't need to comment. You don't need to explain. Just take one small step that aligns with it. And if you want more stories like this, told slowly, honestly, without noise, you're welcome to stay. Subscribe if you want to keep listening.